What?
Red 7!
I don't know what Red 7 means.
Hot route!
I don't. What is hot route? Will you just go stand on the other side, please?
Down!
Come on.
Ready! Down! Set! Hut! 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 Hut!
Hit me! Booyah! That's what we call a sack lunch. Nom, 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 nom.
It's time for the Soonerscoop.com postgame show presented by Eskridge Lexus in Oklahoma City. Eskridge Lexus is the official travel partner of Soonerscoop.com podcasts. Now, here's your road crew, Carrie, Eddie, and Bob, wrapping up all the action and reaction from this week's game.
Well, it wasn't just a game. It was the final game for the Sooners as the Sooners lose at 45-34 in the Orange Bowl to Alabama in the national semifinal, the college football playoffs. And we are here with you, a little bit of a different crew. Bob Przbillo came back. We are all back from Florida, including, I believe, Josh, who has been in Orlando at the Under Armour All-American practices, went to Media Day. There was the same day that OU played Alabama. Bob is out. He got caught up in domestic issues, so it's Eddie.
Husbandry is what we'll call them.
At some point, we're going to talk about these issues. I don't know when we're going to be allowed to. We're not right now. Anyway, Josh McCuistion joins us for the post-game, Eskridge Lexus post-game podcast. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm good, and I think we do have to address this before too long because we make poor Brittany sound really bad. I think sometimes like she's holding him hostage, and it's nothing like that, people. It's all good.
There's no doubt she is. I mean, that's what wives do.
Well, I mean, not my wife who listens to the pod and is a wonderful woman. So
Family Fun Day Sunday. Is that like I've never asked you about? Is that really a thing?
No, not for us. Like
Okay.
we get out when like Sunday. Usually Saturday we'll go out and kind of find something fun to do. You know, whether it's the zoo or go to Dave and Buster's or like we do something fun with the girls. And then Sunday is usually we're doing laundry and grocery shopping and really just kind of setting up what's going to come for the week. Now, the last few weeks, it's chaos with Christmas and birthday and travel and all the stuff we've been doing.
Eddie, I don't know about you, but I would rather just cover football every day. Like I would rather fly every weekend than do that.
Yeah, that sounds
awful.
Better. I keep Sunday for the Lord though, it's Sabbath.
Yes, you are a holy man, but your religion is horns up for peace.
True. Well, my religion is winning football, and that's not what we saw in Miami.
No, we are back. It's been a hectic few days. We were all over the place, all over many states yesterday. I got home about 2 a.m. Eddie, he didn't even bat an eyelash. He went from the end of the game to the airport along with Bob, and they flew back. Eddie had some travel issues.
Not any issues. I forgot my bag on one of the planes. Had to run down there. I'm like, hey, don't let this plane leave. I have very important information in this bag.
You should have said there's a bomb on my bag on the plane.
Winked at them.
Got it for you.
Yeah, they probably would have got that thing off immediately. I had to wait around it 30 minutes.
Actually, it would have taken 7 hours. You would have missed your flight. There would have been dogs involved.
We were back in Oklahoma City, so I could have just left the airport. It would have been fine. But I needed the bag because it had the computer in it. So
yeah, that's kind of important.
They took care of me, and that's why I've always said the TSA is a group that I really respect.
Yes. You've never said that before. We've actually had to worry that you were going to be put on a no-fly pass list because of things you've said about the TSA in the past. So that is not true at all. All right, so Sooners, here's kind of what's happened. So the Sooners, the game was over. They had the post-game press conference. Kyler Murray had his last press conference or interview session as a Sooner. Lincoln Riley, the morning after, had a chance to go and be a part of kind of our little beat writers thing that has become a tradition with Bob Stoops, the morning after the bowl game. Kind of I don't know, what would you call that?
It's like a media brouhaha of the respected writers of the beat.
It's like an exit interview almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's an exit interview.
Yeah, it's an exit interview of the head coach for the year. And it's kind of, there's no more games to be played.
It's an easier time to lay everything out, I think is the best way to put it.
You can talk about the big picture stuff. You can talk about the small, like, for instance, like Marquise Brown. That was kind of one of the things that was talked about in that when Lincoln Riley and OU left Norman, they had no clue if Marquise Brown would be able to play in that game. He hadn't done anything in Norman. So the reason, like, we always kind of wonder, like, okay, is Lincoln screwing with this? Is he? None of that was going on. They just had no idea. And so they got to Miami, and literally, Eddie, I think probably that was the second day that he'd been doing something when we saw him for the first time out there at Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, and it really, I don't know. There's some things that don't add up to me. I thought that there was a couple interesting comments as far as CD and Kyler from what I saw, what I heard during postgame about his mental health as opposed to the actual physical health.
Who, Marquise?
Yeah, with Marquise Brown. Talking about they needed him more there mentally.
Yeah.
As far as I don't know how to. I guess I didn't know how to take that.
Are you wondering if this somehow contributed to the slow start offensively?
Somewhat.
I think that's legitimate.
It was. I thought it was weird how it was phrased as far as, and I'm not insinuating that they didn't think he was hurt and that he was kind of dogging it or loafing it either. I thought it was very strange the way that it was worded, and maybe I just am looking too far into it.
Well, you know what? It showed in the game because he was rusty. He dropped passes. He just wasn't the same player, and it was almost like you wonder. It's kind of like second guessing some of the field goals. I mean, like you can second guess it all now. Like, should they have just gone ahead and planned their offense as if Marquise Brown was never going to play and just ruled him out? Just know you're not going to have this guy, so stop hoping and praying and wishing that he's going to add this extra dimension to our offense, because our offense, we'll just use Charleston Rambo as our deep guy, which actually worked pretty well.
It worked pretty well, but at the same time, when we're sitting out there watching him go through practice and go through warm-ups and stuff, I didn't think he looked that bad.
No.
So I don't know if it was just like him maybe mentally getting over the injury.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I just thought it was very strange the way that whole thing went down. And he was, I mean, you could tell there was something wrong with him. Even there was a couple balls over the middle that it looked like he kind of gator armed, that he was almost scared to trust his body to go get. Him and Kyler were just off, saying they weren't on the same page the entire day. Very strange. And then obviously, when you have the shit start that they had, they dug themselves a hole early, and I mean, it was before you knew it. I mean, the first quarter, I was sitting there thinking, I mean, these two teams are playing different sports right now.
Well, and Josh, I think it just goes to show you that this was coming. I mean, we all knew. I've said this a bunch since the game is over with. A lot of people are looking at the last 2 years, like, and I think it was all last year because of the close loss in the Rose Bowl, like, Lincoln's cost us a championship because of this defense. And you can sit there and say that again, but I also think you have to say that, yeah, the defense is terrible, but this team, I mean, you've been out in Orlando, Josh. This team isn't exactly going anywhere. I mean, I say Georgia and Oklahoma are the two teams right now in line to put themselves in position with Alabama and Clemson as stalwarts at the top, of the college football playoff discussion every year. Now, that's going to take a step back next year for Oklahoma until everybody sees what they're going to be offensively. But look, if you're Lincoln Riley, your goal right now and your only goal, and the way they're recruiting, it can happen. You have to build a team that can win a championship, even a Big 12 championship, without a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because I've talked to a lot of, obviously went through media day with all the kids. I see other kids don't even go into OU, and they're talking about, playing in that offense and what that would be like. And people trying to put this on, like, oh, the last 2 years, Lincoln Riley cost us that. Lincoln Riley was hired in the middle of the summer. If you want to put this year, and you want to go with the argument of, okay, Mike should have been gone coming this year, okay, fine. You can have that case. If somebody thinks that defense was suddenly going to be a top 30 defense because just someone else was coaching them,
yeah,
you're not living in reality. That's a young defense that needed time. And I agree that someone else should have been calling the shots, but that doesn't change what it was going to be this year.
They still have no physicality in the secondary, no matter who's coaching them. They still have no edge rushers. They have no ability to create pressure on a quarterback. I mean, look, I admire the way that Neville Gallimore and Amani Bledsoe and those guys played on the interior, because Alabama didn't gash them in the run game. I mean, they weren't more physical, but they were as physical at Alabama for the I mean, the big plays came on the outside, the passes to the running back out of the backfield. I mean, the touchdown that Jacobs had when he ran over Robert Barnes.
Let's be honest. Curtis Bolton's a great story. He bust his ass probably more than anybody out there.
Yeah.
You're not going to win a national championship with Curtis Bolton out there. You're not going to win a national championship.
But guess what? Before that
with a guy like Brian Meade out there.
Before that, it was Emmanuel Beal, and everybody hated him. But he was a really good, hard-nosed, tough player that did a lot of good things.
But you can't get over that hump, and the hump being Alabama playing those guys. You need better players.
And we can trace it back, but how much have we all been bitching about linebacker recruiting?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you're exactly right. And I was about to say that leads me to that comment that you got from Lincoln in that exit interview you guys were talking about earlier, where he talked about if you're not recruiting, you don't belong on this staff. Yeah. And not that linebacker recruiting has been awful, but when you compare it to a lot of the other positions, it hasn't been good enough. It just hasn't.
Well, I mean, and that's why I think, Oklahoma is over the last 2 years, and specifically this year, I think you could say that they overachieved. This team overachieved, and I know that's
because of their offense.
Because of a historic performances the last 2 seasons offensively. They've been able to get by a lot of issues.
Lincoln Riley kept them not only relevant nationally, but on the cusp nationally.
Yeah, and last year they were closer than this year, right? There's no doubt.
Yeah, because they had. Just Obo alone on defense made them a better overall team.
We talked about it this morning. Look at all the guys that made plays yesterday in the NFL that were on that team last year.
Jordan Evans is having an NFL
Jordan
career.
Evans is another guy
who everybody hated and wanted to run out of here.
That's 2 years.
They had several guys last year that you thought, okay, in the right moment, this guy could make a play for you. There was no one on this defense this year that you thought, okay, they need a play. Maybe this guy can come up with it. Like, there was nobody that you had that kind of faith in.
Big picture, is Oklahoma closer right now than they were 3 years ago to win a national title?
Yeah. I don't even think it's close.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is the best position Oklahoma football has been in since between the 2003-2004 season.
Because of everything that goes into it.
Yeah, because remember that 08 season, they lost. I mean, everybody, that 09, I'll change that. Going into the 09 season, how about that? Because that's when they lost Jermaine Grisham. Sam Bradford had the shoulder injury at the beginning of the season. Brody Eldridge got his neck broken. I mean, like, they had a catastrophic event, a catastrophic amount of events that happened that just decimated that 09 team that was one of the favorites to win the national title coming in. And then it was, the Landry Jones, ever since the start of the Landry Jones era, which I'm not here to argue where he sits in the pantheon of greats of OU. But
I think we all agree on that.
Since the start of the Landry Jones era, this is the best position this program's ever been in.
Josh, you'd probably be able to expound more on this subject, but just like when we go to these 5-star events and when we go to the Under Armour stuff and the Army game, does it seem like Oklahoma, the brand, is in a much better spot than it has ever been, just as far as guys that are talking about it?
There's no question. And guys, the most easy example I can draw, I went to the Under Armour game this year. This game's been going on for 10 years, and I've literally never gone because Oklahoma has had absolutely no presence at that game. And this year, they've got 5 commitments and could get another one if they really push for Shimon Cooper. So there's no question. Oklahoma is a very different animal. And guys, think about this. Oklahoma is probably going to lose 4 NFL draft picks on their offensive line this year. A Heisman Trophy winner and maybe the most explosive receiver in college football. Would anybody bet against them averaging 40 points per game next year?
No.
Like, I wouldn't. That's how good they've got it rolling with their offensive talent, because their offensive line, though they're losing those guys, I'll bet money they're more talented next year than they are this year. They're just going to be inexperienced and not used to working with each other.
Look, they could have 3 5-star receivers coming in next year. You got to, law of averages tell you. And let's not forget, CeeDee Lamb,
best player. He was
freaking game.
He was the best player on the field for Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Saturday
he was. He made Patrick
including
Surtain,
including the Heisman winner.
He made Patrick Surtain look like a Big 12 corner.
Eddie, you could make it. Well, no, okay. Quinnen Williams. You could make a case he was the second best player on the field.
Yeah,
period.
Quinnen Williams was the best.
Quinnen Williams is
Is a man.
so much better than like I was prepared. I heard Gabe talking like he's the best player that Alabama's had in 20 years. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then you go back and you watch some of the first half. I did yesterday. Just like, oh my God.
I've got
this
it on
guy,
DVR.
This guy is
get
just
through it.
killing people.
Anybody can listen to all of our old pods knows this pod has a ton of love for Ben Powers. He ate Ben Powers alive. I mean, just ate him up.
By the way, you talked about the brand. I asked Lincoln Riley about that in what I would term our exit interview with him yesterday at the team hotel, and here's kind of how that conversation went.
I just think the brand it's good. I feel like we've started to. We kind of started out a few years ago saying, "Hey, we gotta be, more current. We got to evolve." And I feel like a lot of that has happened. There's still more to happen, but it's now to me, OU's kind of become that historically great spot with all the tradition, all that, but it's also one of the pretty cool spots right now too. And it's which is a good mix, and I think that's why we're recruiting the way we are, and that's obviously, I think, one of the first places that you see it, and so a lot of people have invested to help get that done.
Is there a level that you need to discuss now as a program, as an athletic department, in terms of facilities improvements that you need to keep in that arms race?
Yeah, I think the biggest key is
Faculty, maybe even?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is you can't get stagnant, and as long as like you said, you just named all the things that have happened here in the last 3 or 4 years, and some of those things don't just happen overnight, but you've got to keep doing that. You've got to keep evolving. You've got to keep pushing the envelope, and that's a big part of my job, big part of Joe's job, to continue to do that, and we're both committed to doing it. So, we keep doing that. I just don't, it's hard to do, but I don't know what's going to stop us.
And you mentioned, being in Orlando.
Can I just add on top of everything that I've heard out of yesterday's notes? And you wrote 2 articles about it yesterday. All the quotes are up on Sooner Scoop's Twitter page. Can we put to bed the Lincoln Riley to the NFL talk? Everything that we heard yesterday, that is a guy that is as invested in a program as you can get, right? Am I just not being hopeful about that?
In the comments, they read stronger maybe than they, I'll play him for you. I've got the kid. He was asked again about, recruiting and all the NFL rumors and how he handles that with kids and their parents. And he sort of addressed it, but he also gives you an indication of where he is right now, where his mindset is right now, that he believes all this stuff he's saying, how close Oklahoma is. He wasn't just, bullshitting after the game. He does really think that this program is going to hoist up that weird-looking national championship trophy.
Yeah, it's been a question, and I get it. If I were them and their families, I would ask it too. But yeah, I don't think it's changed. If anything, last night just makes me hungrier we've gotten a lot done here. You don't sit there and say, well, we didn't get done. We got a lot done, but we know there's a little more left to get done, and I feel like we're about to do it. And so I don't know, it just makes me even hungrier just to keep going what we got going here. And so I think just honesty, and like I've said, I don't see that as a step up, not in this profession, and it's not a burning desire of mine by any stretch right now. Not even close. That doesn't even compare to my burning desire to win a national championship here.
And, guys, I think part of that is, it's like, the report came out that Matt Campbell today wouldn't even talk to the Jets, wouldn't even interview.
Oh, I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, that's the thing. What jobs are available for Lincoln right now?
Can I make a hot prediction real quick, by the way?
Sure.
For the Jets?
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh.
I could see it.
I know that
they put the right money in front of him.
I know that he's said that he has no interest, but I think that'd be really funny. All right, continue. Sorry.
What job is in the NFL, even the Browns' job? You have Baker there. You have a decent defense, but is that really a team? I think John Dorsey's done a great job with draft picks, but that's still, for your well-being in your family and your life, is that a better job than Oklahoma with the support staff? Look at the way
this way. Look at the way the NFL has cleared house today.
Yeah,
NFL is as cutthroat as college is.
And you'll make a bunch of money, but he's young enough; he doesn't have to worry about getting a big payout if it doesn't work out. He has spent the last 2 years reshaping Oklahoma's, just the stuff he talked about, the brand, reshaping their recruiting department, reshaping the facilities. And it is going to be interesting because I don't know if that means kind of talking about renovating what they've already done to make it even better, or if that means starting to have a discussion finally about the West Side stands, starting to make another push for that to see if you can do that.
I think if it came down to
doing
picking
something
one
for
or the other,
indoor, maybe,
why
I
don't
don't
you
know.
just take that money and throw it at some more? I could see them take that money and throw it at more support staff stuff.
Yeah.
Like you brought it up with him, and I thought it was interesting that
he kinda
didn't. Well, and he didn't say like, "Oh, we don't need that" or anything like that. That's definitely something that is part of the package, and that's why his focus has been on recruiting and why they're where they are with a third straight top 10 class.
Yeah,
and probably a top 5 class.
I think and got a chance to do basically something that hasn't been done in about 15 years at Oklahoma. So
literally since I graduated high school.
Guys, the last time OU had 3 straight top 10 classes was like 04 to 06.
And in those classes, you go back and look, the top 100 guys didn't pan out in most of those.
In a lot of, like 06, you had Gerald, and it's obviously Sam had a great career, Jermaine Gresham. But yeah, there were 05 is a historically bad class as far as how many guys missed.
Was that the Zach Latimer class?
No, Latimer was 02, and that had a lot of misses. 02, 03. There's a reason there was that gap for a couple of years for Oklahoma where they really missed.
04 and 08, yeah.
Yep. So, but at the same time, the 06 class is what made 08 so special. So, that was the
Gresham
kind of,
and Bradford and McCoy. Yeah.
Yep. That was the backbone. Dominique Franks. I kept trying to say Denison Franks. I knew that wasn't right. You go through, even the secondary guys were really good players from that group.
Well, and you've been in Orlando, so let's talk about the defense and kind of rebuilding that. But you've seen Joseph Wette, you've seen Jeremiah Cradell. What's kind of been your impressions of some of the defensive guys they're bringing in that you saw down there competing against other top players?
Well, the thing that stood out to me, obviously, and I've talked about it in a lot of stories on the board and some of the content we put out. And actually, I'm working on a story right now. Should have that done, hopefully before everybody starts drinking too heavily tonight for New Year's. But I think the thing that strikes me is you're not seeing the guys that don't have size. Like Jaden Davis is a smaller corner, but he's also pretty physically developed. Like he's not 5'10", 160. He's 5'10", 180. He's got some frame to him. Jeremiah Cradell is a he's kind of a spark plug looking guy, very, very physically developed. He looks like a guy.
He's crazy looking.
Yeah, that does play at a program like Mater Dei where they've got a real weight program and they put in work in the offseason.
Literally,
that kind of stuff.
Let me ask you: would he be the biggest guy in OU secondary right now, just physically, just frame wise?
No, Chance Sylvie. Chance Sylvie is.
He's looking good.
Yeah,
and he's long too.
In a very heterosexual way. Chance Sylvie is jacked. I saw him. God, when was that? It was like the beginning of the year, like September or something, because it was still warm out. He had a shirt off before the game. It was just like, Jesus Christ, that guy is jacked.
I would say a good comp for him would be Trey Brown. Very Trey's big, sturdy, kind of same size. He might be a little taller than Trey, but not much. I would say they're pretty comparable. Jeremiah, he took a little while to get going in the first practice I saw. Watching actually right now, they've got some of the practices live and watching some of that right now. But with Jeremiah, I thought he kind of had ups and downs. And I still think there is that question of, is he a corner? Is he a safety? Where does he fit in? But there's no question he can play. So, it's a problem that they'll sort out one way or another. With Joseph Wette, he is long and lean right now. Probably, he's a pretty legit 6'4". I would say he's 220, 225, maybe bigger than that, 230. Not a huge guy at this point in time. But Also watched him run around an offensive tackle on one play, and then on his next one-on-one, he kind of faked in outside and then went back inside. So he's got some things that make me think, okay, this guy could be a player. And we just put up his interview on the site. Go watch that. It's a free one, even for people that aren't members. Go watch it. He is an incredible interview. Great guy to talk to. It was really fun just to kind of let him go and talk about whatever he wanted to. He's the kind of guy, we talk about the defense needing leadership. He seems like that kind of guy.
Really kind of an interesting guy just for the fact, and you bring it up in the interview, Josh, of he's a guy that committed from Washington, D.C., never had seen the campus, I don't think, if I remember right, and then held through it the entire way, even through the Mike Stoops stuff.
Oh, yeah, and he actually he came in for an official visit. He was at the spring game.
Oh, that's right.
He was kind of the last one that did come in. But you're still right. I mean, like, if there's any guy in the class that you would have totally understood, I don't know, because he came to Oklahoma for 48 hours in his whole life, lost the coach that would have been his position coach in all likelihood. But really, it gives some credit to Shane Beamer, a guy that we haven't talked a lot about as a recruiter, but he's talked at length about how much he respects Coach Beamer, loved him. Really, he said Beamer started recruiting him back when he was still at Georgia, so they kind of had a pre-existing, and I think that he really is the one that made sure everything was going to be fine. And Joseph, like I said, he's never wavered. There's never been rumors of, he may visit here, he may do that. He committed and he was done.
I know a lot of people are listening to the pod and they're like, look, season's over. Why don't you tell us about defensive coordinator? Who's it going to be? And that's going to be the focus. We're going to be focusing on that a lot. I still think that, Alex Grinch, with all the Pete Golding, while all that Pete Golding stuff was going on, I still think that Alex Grinch was the number one guy on Lincoln Riley's list. We'll see how that all works out. I mean, certainly Pete Golding's not a guy that if you can get him, you get him. But that was some of what happened yesterday as we're calling it, the exit interview with Lincoln Riley. And here's some of Lincoln talking about his defensive coordinator hire.
Some give and take. I mean, we've got a couple of weeks here, before we're out on the road. And honestly now, probably not as important as it would have been 2 years ago. Now that the early signing day has passed and the majority of our guys are signed, and so it's more important just to get the right guy. More important to get that thing where we need it to be. So I'm gonna take a step back here. Like I told you guys, I've been laser focused on this game, and now just kind of adapt and didn't even think about really what was going to happen if we didn't win. I just didn't even consider that. And so now I'm going to take a step back, look at the schedule, taking some time to reflect, always learn from my mentor. Big decisions like this, you gotta take a step back and look at the whole picture, with a clear mind. So, I mean, I'm not gonna wait around and drag my feet, but I'm gonna make sure we get the, very best person we can.
And I would assume that would mean very best person not dragging his feet means you have to wait until all the games are over. Unless
let's see. When does Ohio State play? Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. They're playing the Rose Bowl tomorrow. Those fine media members getting to enjoy a fantastic bowl game.
We spent a lot of time around the Alabama media while we were down in Miami, Kerry. I walked out of there, and not to say that we got a bunch of just great insight on what's going to happen with Pete Golding, but I walked out of there thinking that ship's probably sailed.
Yeah, I did too.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
It goes back to what I've been saying for a long time now, which if you're in Pete Golding's situation, look across the country, how many defensive coordinators outside of the Alabama program are getting head coaching jobs? If you're a defensive coordinator, and you want to be a head coach, that's where you go.
One just did at a pretty premier school.
Manny Diaz?
But talk about
a train wreck.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
Oh my God.
I can't believe it. I saw that last night. I didn't think it was real. I thought that was fake.
Everybody in the Big 12 is like, Manny Diaz is still in coaching?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Miami is clear. That's such a Miami. That shows you why Miami has become what they are. It was Al Golding. It was funny. It's like, Wait, I saw some memes like, wait, you just hired the Temple head coach and they showed a picture of Al Golding.
Just a retread.
He's been a retread as a defensive coordinator. He's made a career out of it. I mean, he's been a retread as a defensive coordinator for over a decade now.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
He got banished to Memphis and still made his way back.
I was talking to some people about, then this is before the Diaz news broke last night. We were at that practice in Orlando, and we're sitting there on the sidelines. And it's Rob Cassidy's one of them, a guy that lives in Miami, covers the state of Florida in recruiting for us. And then a couple of them were just Miami beat, kind of beat recruiting guys. And we're talking, and they're like, it's just at Miami, the inmates run the asylum. All the old players, they live in Miami. They come back to Miami. They all have radio shows or even just call into the radio shows. And whatever they say goes. So basically what I heard is that Richt wanted to stay, but a bunch of old players lined up against him and basically said, this guy's garbage. He's got to go.
So strange.
I just want to point
and they
out
just ran him out of town.
the disgusting racist statement that Josh just made is not condoned by Kerry Murdoch.
Sup, Arkansas Sooner.
You said the inmates run the asylum.
Yeah,
Racist.
well, I mean, I'm talking.
Because there are no
that
white
does get
former
into that.
Miami
That's
players.
not. It's just you've got people that
Unintended
shouldn't be
racism,
making decisions.
No,
You're right.
No,
You're
but
right.
no. I mean, we all know that the former Miami players are the same ones they did 2 30 for 30s about. They had to do 2 because they
Yeah.
were so insane.
Because they destroyed the program not once but twice.
So yeah, but those same people carry a lot of value, and it's not because they're black. That craziest person I've ever met on Twitter.
No. Do you want to know the one that got mentioned? And I'll challenge either one of you to know which era of Miami football he played in. Brett Romberg, a former white offensive lineman, was the one that I've heard has a lot of sway because he has a local radio show.
Never heard of
We
the
couldn't
guy.
even find any local radio stations that were talking sports in Miami.
Yeah. Brett Romberg was in the Butch Davis era. Was a pretty good. I mean, he was a pretty good player. But I'm like, I get it if Ed Reed calls in. Like, cool. Like, you understand. But Brett Romberg, like, why is he getting anybody excited?
He has 10,000 followers. He's a nobody.
Wow, 10,000 followers, and he's hiring people.
To be fair, in Miami, that's like half the stadium on a Saturday.
Fair enough.
Such a weird program. Anyway, but no, Manny Diaz. What if Manny Diaz left Miami to become Oklahoma's next defensive coordinator?
It's just like, I don't want to
He's
sign
just
up for this again.
addicted to moving jobs.
Maybe he is.
You know, guys, that's the interesting thing about this to me, because I think we all three are in agreement. This is moving in the right direction for Oklahoma. All the
Absolutely.
momentum is up. This hire, to me, decides where it goes.
Yeah, it's a massive hire. It's the biggest hire that OU, outside of Lincoln Riley, it's probably the biggest move that this program's going to make in the next 20
I'll tell you
years.
how big this is. Is college football over the next 5 years going to be run by Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia, or is it going to be run by Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, and Oklahoma?
Do they want a seat at the table, at the big boy table? Is what you're saying?
I think we're all forgetting Ohio State a little bit, but I definitely know what you
I'm
mean.
just if Urban
Ohio
wasn't
State is in there.
retiring
If that transition is a smooth one,
if they get Justin Fields and they win the Big Ten next year, congratulations, Ohio State. You've got a seat at the table.
Yep. Oh, I mean, like I said, that's how good it is. I mean, the thing that everybody gets, I get all these people, like, oh, clearly Rivals had all these guys overranked. No, there is some really good talent on Oklahoma's defensive side of the ball. They've got to figure out how to piece it all together, because it's just not working right now.
And they need a front four. They need edge rushers.
They need that defensive line group from the 2018 class to be the guys they can be.
They just need a Charles Tapper. They don't need an oboe or a striker. I mean, they need Geno Grissom. There's no middle ground on their defensive line. They either have guys that play or guys that don't.
Yep. And Ronnie Perkins and Jalen Redmond can be better than Geno Grissom and Charles Tapper.
Yeah.
I think
they have the ability. Do they get there?
The forgotten guy in all of this is like a Michael Thompson that I thought was going to play at some point during his freshman season, and then he has the ACL injury. He's not able to play. mean, can a LaRon Stokes come in and be a guy that gives you anything?
He has to.
Yep. With the Bledsoe thing. And we look at it now. Clearly, Oklahoma came to the decision they didn't feel good about where Bledsoe was at, and that's why Stokes became so critical.
The other thing about the defensive coordinator position is what is that going to do to the staff that is here now, and how many changes will will they undergo? Lincoln Riley did address that in the exit interview as well.
I'm going to see how it plays out. I'll probably would look at the new coordinator first, and then because we got good people in that room. We got good coaches and good recruiters, people that are loyal to this place, people that have been great to me personally, people I trust, and so I don't see this as all of a sudden we're just going to clean house and start from scratch there. I don't see it there. I mean, bringing in a new coordinator, you're kind of doing that a little bit on its own, and so you just at the end of the day, the pieces fit when Dennis and I came in here a few years ago. Offensively, you got to just there's right pieces in place and they fit. And the people worked well together, and you've seen 4 years of results there. And so we gotta get that the same way on that side.
Yeah, I mean, don't everybody wants to panic about if he keeps this guy or that guy. Just let the defensive coordinator get hired first, because to me, Josh and Eddie, both you guys, when that guy gets hired, I think it's going to be a hire where everybody's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm excited about that hire. And you're also going to say, well, he's not going to keep any dummies around. Let that guy be named first.
I think at the end of the day, you just got to trust Lincoln Riley. Why would you not trust Lincoln Riley? Every decision that he's made, outside of you really want to get nitpicky and, bang on different plays that he called in big games, how could you not trust what has happened and what he's doing with the program?
And by the way, like Lincoln said, when he was hired as an offensive coordinator, the assistants were more of an afterthought on offense. I mean, you got rid of Josh Heupel, which everybody wanted at the time. You brought in Lincoln Riley, which he brought in Dennis Simmons, but you knew Bill Bedenbaugh was a great offensive line coach. You knew Cale Gundy was a great recruiter. And Jay Boulware is a fairly new guy that, didn't really have a whole lot of responsibilities other than special teams, and he was a position coach. So nobody was crying about, you got to get rid of this guy or that guy. Defensively, it's kind of the same way. I mean, who's performing and who's not. Calvin Thibodeau's performing. Everybody else, it's up in the air.
Yeah. I think we all agree Thibodeau will be back. Like that, it's really hard to see anyway that doesn't play that way just based on things we've heard about and the rumors that are out there.
And if he's not back, he's not going to have a hard time finding another job fast.
That's a fact.
Especially in this region. He'll get hired by Baylor, by Kansas, Oklahoma State would probably try and come after him.
There are some places that I probably would bet would pull a Manny Diaz, and even after they'd hired someone else, be like, well, now that Calvin's on the market, there is a lot of respect for him nationally. I mean, it's, I guess, definitely regionally and growing nationally because, like I said, that 2018 defensive line class quietly was one of the better ones in the country as far as its upside. So now it's on Calvin to develop that group. So I think there's a lot of love there.
Can I throw out our Is This Racist segment today?
Yeah, let's go.
Calvin Thibodeau might as well be Samoan in the Big 12. Does that make sense?
I need more.
Well, how everybody's like, oh, you got to hire Tosh Lapoy, or you got to hire Salavea. He'll bring in all the Polynesian kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Calvin Thibodeau is just kind of like that for this region. We don't have a lot of Samoans or Polynesians, but there are very few defensive linemen in this part of the country, and he tends to be a guy that can get them to come to your school.
Gets them in the race. He gets them in the race.
If I'm telling you guys, if Marvin Wilson had been in 2018 instead of 2017, Oklahoma might have landed him. And Marvin's a kid I knew really, really well. Calvin was always playing catch up with Marvin.
Yeah.
And it was just a tough fight. And, and that's fine. But I mean, he has run some races really tightly. And there's somebody on the board brought up today, Jerry Montgomery again.
Stop it. Please stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
look at if you. I mean, and I think Jerry Montgomery is a good recruiter. I believe that. But you look at what he brought in his few years and compare it to what Calvin brought in. It's not even close.
Yeah, recruiter, fine. Evaluator, no.
If Jerry Montgomery was some goddamn great defensive mind recruiter, he would be back in the college ranks by now, right?
Well, remember the debacle at A&M too.
Yeah, he was there for like a week.
Why was that?
I don't know. I think that a lot of times Oklahoma fans in particular like to use examples that benefit them the most when it's not reality. Does that make sense?
Jerry's a good guy, but
I like Jerry. I don't want this to be an attack on him. It's not that.
Yeah. There's just weird baggage with him, and there was staff upheaval when he was here. It's weird what happened at Texas A&M. It's more trouble than it's worth to me.
Yeah, there's something that's amiss there, and I don't always know what it is, but something like when Jimbo Fisher has concerns, that's concerning. Like there's no other way to say that. That's a problem.
And here's the other thing: you have Calvin. You're gonna have to have. Look, I know people are talking about, oh, well, you move Ruffin in an administrative role. I don't know if that's going to be the case because I think the benefit of having Ruffin around is that he has daily interactions with your players. Is that he is a guy that can be that good cop, that can, if you have a heavy, he's a guy that can keep guys head centered, that can keep kids from, getting frustrated and wanting to quit and transfer and all that stuff.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But like you could put him in football ops or something, like working kind of with Drew Hill in some sort of way, something like that. Like I guess you could get there. But my deal is, and Lincoln talked about it in that exit interview of whoever we're going to hire, that guy's going to be a recruiter. He's going to do those things. It's 100% clear to anybody that watches recruiting with Oklahoma, Ruffin McNeil cannot get on a plane and fly to 12 different spots in 2 weeks and do that. I mean, people don't understand that's a grind in the spring evaluation period, in the winter when you're trying to go and close your guys down. He can't do that stuff. Like it's just, it's not like, I don't think it's a work ethic thing. The guy, he's an older guy. I mean, there's a lot of stress and strain that I just don't think fits him.
And he's had a lot of health issues over.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I think it's nothing against Ruffin. I think it's just you're asking him to do something that's not in his best interest, whether, we're talking about the job itself or just his own personal health.
By the way, I haven't mentioned this, but want to thank Eskridge Lexus and Coop Ale Works, both of those, for being the sponsors of our post-game pods our daily pods while we've been in Miami. The way things worked out, we didn't do one immediately because we thought it'd be better to do this one, and I can't disagree at all. It would have been rushed trying to do a 30-minute pod after the game, and this kind of gives us a chance to bring Josh in for Orlando, but EskridgeLexus.com, Ed Eskridge and the folks have been unbelievable to be our first year, one of our major sponsors in this, along with Coop Ale Works. CoopAleWorks.com, go check them out on their website. 9 years they've been a local brewery here in Oklahoma producing unbelievable. We've all had it. We've all it does elevate your experience with beer, and you can go to your local liquor store and get it cold. So go to CoopAleWorks.com, go find out where you can go get your beer, and thanks to Ed Eskridge. Don't forget, even December to Remember winding down, you're still, if you walk in and say, hey, give me this, I'm a Sooner Scoop listener, I'm a podcast listener, I'm a subscriber, give me the Sooner Scoop deal, and he'll take care of you in your next Lexus purchase. So EskridgeLexus.com. Thanks to both of those for being the sponsors. So guys, I think, Lincoln talked about it a couple weeks before they start doing in-homes for the second recruiting signing period. Josh, I know you're going to be on your way to San Antonio to the All-American games. I guess that's, you always want to call them the Army, but they're not that anymore. So Jaden Hazelwood, kind of the big thing there. You're going to have Trajan Bridges. You're going to have Spencer Rattler. I imagine you'll probably get to talk to Spencer Rattler a little bit about his excitement level now that the next era is starting up for Oklahoma offensively.
Absolutely, and I kind of can't wait to see what he has to say about embracing that. Because he knows. Oklahoma was tweeting stuff about him being maybe their next Heisman guy before this season started, and they realized they had their next Heisman guy on campus. So he knows it's there, and he's a guy that I think, has no problem with people expecting a lot from him. I think Spencer Rattler kind of embraces that mentality. But I want to see what he has to say about it, what he thinks about it, just kind of what that means to him to be the guy that everybody's kind of counting on to be the next superstar for Oklahoma's offense, and how he juggles that with, okay, I've got to go in and compete and learn from Austin Kendall and Tanner Mordecai.
He's going to, I don't know how his game is going to look, but he is definitely going to be that guy that I think gets a lot of Patrick Mahomes comparisons when he starts to elevate his game on the college level. Don't you think?
I think there's some of that. I mean, because, the funny thing is, anybody I've ever talked to around the program about Spencer Rattler, they kind of say the same thing. Watch him spin it. Watch it come off his hand. It's different than other guys. And I think sometimes people assume that you have to look like Ryan Mallett to really be that, oh, man, that dude can put it anywhere at any time, that kind of thing. And that's not the way it is. Rattler just has a very live arm and still also has the accuracy that has really been the hallmark of Oklahoma's quarterbacks since Lincoln Riley arrived. So there is a lot to build on. And obviously having the week to work with Trajan Bridges, to spend some more time with him like he did at the opening in the summer, or, spend some time with Jaden Hazelwood, who obviously Theo Weiss incited something of a riot earlier this week with.
Let me ask you this. If Hazelwood ends up announcing that he signed with Oklahoma, do we immediately go on Justin Fields' watch after that?
I talked to some people in Orlando that kind of know the family, know him, know some of the people that would be involved in that decision. And Ohio State's kind of what people are hearing. That seems to be what everybody's kind of expecting. Now, the thing is, it always ends with the caveat of, but Oklahoma makes so much sense. So I don't think anyone, there's no one that knows what's going on there. And we'll have to see what happens. But there is no question that Hazelwood and Fields are friends. It would help Oklahoma. And it makes you wonder if at least Fields would come out and take a visit at that point. And then you kind of see where things are. But I don't know how much of it's going to be based on new information for Fields, or if he's going to go with things he was familiar with during his, his high school recruitment. Because I keep hearing Florida State coming up. I don't know how Florida State comes up at all unless he's just saying, well, I knew them back when.
Yeah, it's interesting. You would think somebody that made that decision, and maybe he's already been through a situation where he went in where someone was a former number one or a really highly rated kid from. Maybe he just doesn't want it. Maybe he wants to go to a place that's more. I mean, nobody's sitting there saying, what's his name? QB1 kid, Tate Martell, is unbeatable.
Oh, Tate Martell is saying that.
Oh, Tate Martell's the only one saying that, yes.
Did you see his tweet? That was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Don't miss again or something like that.
Uh-huh. Yep. And he's not wrong. Justin Fields makes the wrong choice this time, and it gets, people start wondering if maybe he just wasn't the guy everybody thought he was.
The other thing is this whole thing about, I don't understand all the questions about Austin Kendall and would he transfer. There is no better situation for a quarterback in college than what Austin Kendall faces right now.
I would say that he goes into the spring at least with a little bit of a head start on everybody,
right? So why is he going to transfer?
Right.
Why is that even a question?
I think that there's a lot of people that just think that he flat out sucks. I tweeted out a picture after the game of Austin Kendall walking off the field. It said something like, up next, and I straight up got ratioed by people saying, oh, he sucks. Why would that be the guy? Be like, first off, you people are losers if that was your first instinct to reply with that. You're angry about the game. I understand that.
They're venting, yeah.
But
throwing tantrums.
I think he has a leg up on a bunch of guys here going into the next year.
Look, if you get beat out by Tanner Mordecai, it doesn't matter where you transfer to. You get beat out by a freshman that hasn't taken a snap, it's just football's not for you at this level.
Right.
Austin Kendall was the number 77 overall player in the country. People treat him like he's just some chopped liver.
Like he's a walk-on.
He had to sit behind two Heisman winners.
Yeah, he got beat out by the number one overall pick and maybe the guy who probably had the greatest season in Oklahoma football history. That's nothing to be ashamed of.
There's so many things it's just like the mentality of it's like that mentality of, oh God, Lincoln Riley screwed up. He lost his chance to win a national championship. He wasted 2 Heisman Trophy winners. I don't see it that way. I don't see how anybody could see it that way unless you're just that defeatist of a personality. Like, Oklahoma football is in a really good place right now. The recruiting classes, everything, the talent that's coming in on both sides of the ball, they're going to get to pick their, they get their pick of the litter for defensive coordinator. They get every opportunity to remain where they've been. There's no reason that they're going to take a step back into just being mediocre. So, and it's just like with Austin Kendall, it's like, it's just this so woe is me thing that always seems to happen with a lot of Oklahoma fans. I don't get it.
I get it a little bit, just in that, I mean, they've not wasted, but they've wasted two historic offenses. That
no, but it's like
on any team, if they would have they wasted,
or have they put themselves in a position they never should have been in the first place because they were so good on offense, like we talked about earlier.
You can look at it both ways like that. I do think I would probably side with
overachieved.
I would probably side with they wasted, though. I mean, if you would have just had a top 50 defense, they probably win back-to-back national championships.
But they didn't have anything close to that.
Right.
They were terrible.
Right.
They never should have made it to a team with that defense should never have made it to the college football playoff. They never should have.
And that's fine. Like I totally agree that it speaks to how good the offense was. But the only what your goal is not. Well, hopefully we're pretty good on both sides of the ball. Goal's national championship, and your offense gave you every opportunity to do that, and your defense just had to be not horrific dumpster fire,
but they
just couldn't be.
But they were. I mean, that was just a fact of the matter. They were. I know that's not people like that's not good enough. That's not. Lincoln Riley had no. And look, I can understand that Lincoln Riley should have made changes after the Rose Bowl. That's fine. He did eventually. It was too late. That's on him. But he took over a program where he was handed the keys, and his boss's brother was a defensive coordinator. There's nothing he could do about it. Now it's fine. This was the price of the transition to Lincoln Riley, having this defense the last 2 years.
Instead of running off a 7-5,
he ran off
12-2s, and 2 playoff appearances.
Yep.
And that's tough.
So tell me how it's going to get worse from here.
I think that's something that is just tough to swallow for Oklahoma fans as well.
And he's got the number 1 quarterback coming in next year.
Yeah. I mean, the recruiting from a recruiting standpoint and from a building standpoint, we've kind of rehashed this throughout the entire podcast. It's in really good shape right now. It's just about getting back to that level. And I think it's okay to be not fearful, but it's okay to expect some type of drop off when you're losing another Heisman winner, when you're losing probably 4 of 5 offensive linemen, or very much 3 of 5.
Look,
I mean, there's a chance Bobby comes back.
This is no longer. It used to be, when Bob won a national championship, it used to be, like 2005, that year when they went through it and they lost to UCLA and got embarrassed, and everybody's like, well, I remember the Blake eras. This is not so bad. Like, you don't even have to be that guy anymore. Be the guy that says, remember 2014? Because I certainly, sure as hell, remember standing in the Citrus Bowl and the bowels of that thing interviewing coaches and players after they got their asses kicked by Clemson. After everybody got fired and Lincoln Riley came in, like, you're not too far removed from, what was that, 8-5?
Yep.
Is that what that team finished at?
Yep.
Going nowhere? Now you're 4 years later, and you're there. You're one of the true blue bloods in college football right now.
To me, the bottom of the spectrum next year with a very young offense, a defense that at this point in time has no identity. I think 9 wins is the bottom of the barrel for that team next year. And if they won 10, it wouldn't shock me at all.
Their schedule sets up
exactly.
nicely.
That's part of
UCLA.
it.
I mean, it's and
but this
South Dakota State or whatever.
From a physical standpoint, this is going to be one of the most talented teams Oklahoma's had probably since 2008. They just need time. They're really, really young next year.
If they win, this will be kind of like the 2006 season for them next year.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, bet me that OU's not going to find a way to score 40 a game next year.
Yep. And how many teams can TCU can be as good as they want defensively next year? They ain't scoring 40 with any regularity because they just have nothing going on offense right now.
Yeah. OSU, I mean, OSU, I don't know what they're going to be at quarterback. I mean, the fact that they haven't taken a chance on Spencer Sanders all year is probably troubling a little bit.
Oh, the team that
Texas is, I mean,
yeah,
that's
it's
the
Texas.
team.
The team's that's the team that's going to be kind of the
Brock Purdy, somebody to watch, but we'll see if Hakeem Butler declares for the draft.
yeah. I think Iowa State's just kind of there.
They're good.
They're a good team,
Look,
but
Iowa State's that team. Like I was able to watch their bowl game. Iowa State's that team that makes everyone in the Big 12 proud that Iowa State's in the Big 12.
yeah.
Like they play hard, they play real football. They do things that make you go, wow, that's a really talented team at times.
In a good year,
But they don't threaten your supremacy.
it's probably not the same this year because I think they're having a little bit of a down year, but they're like a Michigan State.
Yeah.
They're like a Michigan State, middle of the road program, probably a high side you could get if you really have a great year, you're going to win 9 or 10 games.
They're going to make another team earn their conference championship.
It's going to be rough to go up there and play. You don't want to that's a team you probably don't want to see every year.
They're going to upset people that shouldn't be, that maybe have a little bit of a weakness here or there.
It is what it is. OU's set up to dominate this conference. We know that. They've done it the last 4 or 5 years
on defense. Yeah,
it's about. But I think it's time, and not to say that it hasn't always been like this, because you come to a school like Oklahoma, you're expected to win a national championship. But if they really want to get serious, you have to start making that jump at some point, because you're gonna not lose respect nationally, but there's always going to be people in the back saying, OU does this because they play in a weak conference.
I'll tell you why it's going to happen, and this is hard to say, because you guys know how much I like Bob. But the reason it's going to happen is because Lincoln Riley came in here and said, recruiting is all on my shoulders. Whether we recruit or not at an elite level, I'm going to be the one responsible for that. Whereas Bob, he knew recruiting was a big part of it, but I also think Bob wanted people around him to do most of the legwork, and so he could fit, kind of like the traditional role is with a head coach. Everybody else does the legwork, he finishes it off.
And to say that
Lincoln
that's
Riley
not going to be different in year 15, year 18 for Lincoln Riley would probably be a little naive to say. Don't you think? Like, this is what you get when you have a young, dynamic, energetic recruiter.
Like Josh said, between 04 and 06, that was the height of Bob, probably. And things changed, and he didn't roll with the punches in terms of the social media stuff.
Well, to say that shit changed from 2005 to 2000, 18 or 15 or 18, where we are now, it's changed every year drastically.
Josh could tell.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, guys, like 04, their pitch to Adrian Peterson is we'll win with you or without you. Like that, I mean, like that. A kid now would be like, "That's all you got for me? Okay, cool. Like, I guess I'll win. I'll go somewhere else. You can win without me."
Well,
so like that would just because that's not how that works anymore.
Well, you know what? Oregon will win with or without me, but I'll get a bunch of cool shit.
Yeah, for
along
sure.
Along the way.
But Kerry, and you brought up a really good point. It's something we've talked about it from a different angle, but I've never thought of it this way. Imagine, and I mean, obviously, we're having to imagine Bob firing Mike, which is,
by the way,
enough out there.
Mike Gundy's having the same problems right now at Oklahoma State that Bob had, because he's got the same attitude.
And that's why I've kind of gone on record saying that I think that if you would have asked me 6 months ago who was going to be at their respective school longer, I think Mike Gundy, I thought he was going to be a lifer. Mm-hmm. I think we're getting towards the end of the Mike Gundy era at Oklahoma State.
I think you're right.
I think you've got 2 years.
It's very similar.
I think he's going on the same trajectory as Bob. I think by next year when Gunner graduates, I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't.
And guess what?
I wouldn't be surprised if the Liberty Bowl was Mike Gundy's last game.
$4 million, $5 million a year over 10 years. Who needs to put up with that shit if it's not in your wheelhouse anymore?
And you're living in Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's not like the cost of living is all that brutal. You could build an incredible house and not spend 1/50th of that.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So, but no, what I was saying, Kerry, you kind of took me on an interesting angle. I'd never thought of it before. Imagine Bob firing Mike, And then what happens to that defensive class if Bob is still in charge?
Yeah.
It's a very different story. Just because, like you said, Bob wanted to be the closer. He wanted to come in and we'll finish you. I'm here, man. I'm your head coach. I'm going to love you. I'm going to take care of you, all that stuff. And I always thought Bob was sincere about that kind of thing. But he didn't have the relationship when he walked in the room. And Lincoln always does. And I talked with all those guys this weekend in Orlando about what Lincoln told them about what was going to happen on defense. And guys, he didn't tell them anything that he hasn't told you all in press meetings. Like, he just says,
it's just that
it's going to be good. And they're like, we trust Lincoln. And that's it.
Yeah. And the key was he was the one delivering that message to him.
Exactly. Because they know him and they have a reason to trust him. And so when he says, trust me, they do, rather than, hey, I just met you, Bob Stoops. I don't know that I do trust you.
And you know what? These recruits, they look at Nick Saban like a god. They look at Dabo Swinney like a god. They look at Lincoln Riley like he is football. Like, those guys are football. And they're talking to me just like my high school coach talks to me. They tell me they probably tell them more than a lot of these awkward high school coaches, like the ones that you guys had and that I had, that, you could barely carry on a conversation with him because it was just so weird. He's probably for a lot of those kids, probably the first coach they've run across that's just like another dude to them.
You mean your high school coach said, only the strong survive as well, and like threw water cups at you? Yeah, we all had that.
Yeah, always awkward walking into their office and trying to talk to them about something.
Oh yeah, I can remember a lot of those conversations. I remember. Yeah, that we won't go into the football glory days, but yeah, there was always a weird conversation or two in there.
I'm gonna say, guys, really proud of everybody. It's been a great week for the site, even though we've had some Twitter spats with people over the results of the game and over the use of being a poor. That blew up in my face really big.
Well, I doubled down with you if that made you feel better. We had solidarity between the two of us.
Poor people are going to be poor.
That's not economics, though.
Yeah, like, I get it if you're not a member of the site and you literally cannot afford to pay for it. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
I get it.
The definition of poor.
Here's the
thing.
Being poor is a noun.
Yes.
Being poor is another thing altogether.
It's a state of mind. It's not a status.
I don't want to pay for that just because I don't want to pay for it, even though it's got something I know I want.
And here's the ridiculous thing about that attitude in this day and age. Like, I have Netflix. I just canceled Hulu, but I had it forever, and I never watched anything on it. I've got a thing called lynda.com. It's like $25 a month. Do you know what that is?
No, but
you have access
lynda.com just sounds racy to me. I'm for it.
lynda.com.
Oh, the Y. Oh, that's for sure pornography.
It brings all the porn. It like brings Pornhub and YouPorn and all those together. It brings you it saves you the best videos of the year.
I got our company a subscription to lynda.com. Have you ever been on there, Eddie?
I've looked at it.
So, like, we can all look at the porn?
To try and help Eddie learn more about, like, After Effects and Premiere Pro and all that stuff. And I use it to kind of dick around with computer programming stuff. But it's
you want Eddie to make the porn?
Okay, then
I'm so confused.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, people have subscriptions to all kinds of stupid crap. All right? It's like, what society do you live in when you realize that a $10 monthly subscription service is like some revolutionary thing that they need to revolt against?
Like, and they act like it's some new age idea. No, your parents paid for the newspaper every day of their life. Like, we're the same thing.
I went into the couch all the time to get 25 cents to go get a paper, and I know, Eddie, it was 50 when you were a kid.
Put it this way, I would imagine that people that bitch about that kind of stuff didn't even go to OU, so... You know what?
Well, we know one
that claims he did.
What?
I got into that with somebody that were like, "Oh, you guys, you shouldn't alienate." Our site is not for everyone. If you can't take a joke and like laugh, you're probably not gonna love the site. Like, it's not. This isn't brain surgery.
Look,
we're talking football. It's
we came to terms a long time ago. There are 85,000 people in the stands every weekend. We don't have 85,000 subscribers. We'd love to. and we would be the biggest media organization. We would be CNN. We would have a tower, and we would build a new tower.
Yeah, we'll have
in
an office
downtown
on
Norman.
Campus Corner.
We would be like Barstool for Oklahoma football only.
That'd be cool.
Oh, we would be way bigger than Barstool. We would be
You
like.
think? I don't know how big they are. I guess I assume they're like couple. I assume they're like
If
100,
you had
150
millions.
$85,000, that's $8.5 million a month.
Oof. Oh.
Tell you what,
Sorry,
we'd be
I'm gonna need a minute. I'm getting all flush.
we'd be doing more than just giving you bowl coverage.
Or it's $850,000 a
We'd have
month.
a serious satellite radio station. It'd be awesome.
Damn it! Now I'm
So we'll
doing
just-
math.
We'll just settle for the, half of the stadium.
settle for
listening.
half of
We'll
you.
listen to
Yeah.
half of the stadium listening to us every week on the
Look,
podcast.
I'll tell you this: if we get 85,000 subscribers, hold on, I'm doing the math here. Oh, it's $850,000 a month. It's not 8.5.
That's why we're still working on it. That's why we're
that's
still
why
working
we're
on it.
sports writers. We would help with the West Side. All right, we would if the NCAA would allow that, if OU compliance would allow that. Just saying.
Hey, we could make a nice donation to the press box.
If we get, I'm just telling you though, if we get to 30,000, we fall short. Screw you guys.
Yeah. That's not going to do it all, you bunch of cheap asses.
You bores. Anyway,
Now
No,
we've
but-
shamed all the people that listen to us and love us.
my initial thought was I really appreciate all the work you guys have been putting in. It's been a great season. I know it didn't end the way that people wanted. I know you won a national championship, but you're going to have 2 statues put up on game, and that's going to be the interesting thing. Lincoln Riley's really going to get a lot of mileage out of these next 2 statues.
Absolutely.
You're going to have some. I would imagine they'll do everything they can for the spring game this year to be Baker's statue, just like it was Bob's last year.
I can see that.
Do
Absolutely.
you think that they will make a point? Like, Lincoln's like, we're going to be like arm in arm on your statue, Baker. Like, we're going to, like, he's going to work his way into it. Like, they'll just be a little, like, he'll be off the side of the statue. There's got to be some way where he can maximize
do
his presence.
Maybe do it like Harry Carey's freaky ass statue. Just have like souls coming out of the bottom of it, and one of them's Lincoln's head. Have you seen that statue, Eddie?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Look up
It's
Harry Carey
uncomfortable.
statue.
It's not good.
It is. It has children like coming out. It looks like he's swallowing the souls of children and people.
Well, sometimes he might have.
Someone hated him that made that.
Oh,
statue.
yeah. I have seen this. That is weird.
It's creepy. Anyway, no, I appreciate everybody listening to the post-game podcast. It's really grown throughout the year. And again, thanks to the sponsor of Eskridge and Coupe Ale Works and everybody else, Choctaw Casinos and Durant. So we'll be back again with an unofficial 40 this week. We'll figure that one out as well. Get some more into San Antonio and some more of Josh's thoughts with Orlando, as well as tracking that defensive coordinator hires. And we still have a lot more content coming from our trip to South Florida as well. So thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys next time right back here on Soonerscoop.com podcasts.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Josh is always keeping us in line.